Hello, hello, and welcome back to This Day in History. It is August 30th, 2024, and as you know, it's not about the year, it's about the magic of the day. We've got a lot to get through, and a short time to get through it because I'm running late. Birthdays. The first birthday is 1797. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. She was a British author. You would probably know her work if you've ever seen any of the horror films like Frankenstein, because she's the author of Frankenstein. She wrote that story, and rest is history. The next birthday that we have is 1871. Ernest Rutherford, who's a British physicist. American politician Huey Long was born in 1893. 1908, we see the birth of Fred MacMurray. Now, when I was writing all this stuff down, I was like, man, I know that name because I watched a lot of movies and TV and such growing up. I mean, I was a child of the 80s, and pop culture is kind of my thing. I was thinking the actor who played Herman Munster in the original Munsters TV series in the 60s, who eventually would play the judge in My Cousin Vinny. That was his last movie. But that was not Fred MacMurray. I think his name was Fred Gwynne. I'm drawing a blank. At any rate, Fred MacMurray was actually a Disney actor, and some of my favorite Disney movies from the 60s, 50s and 60s was, this guy. He played in The Shaggy Dog. He played in My Three Sons, The Son of Flubber. He played the original absent-minded professor. I always liked Fred MacMurray's work. 1930, we see the birth of Warren Buffett, and who's still alive today. He's an American businessman and philanthropist. He's I don't wish any ill will on anybody, even if I don't politically agree with them. And Warren Buffett's one of those guys that he funds a lot of left-leaning agenda stuff. He's a liberal himself. He's card-carrying Democrat. So he funds the Democrat policies. He funds the Democrat campaigns. Yada 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 yada. Is there some good that he does? Probably. I don't know. Again, being a conservative, I'm not a real big fan of liberals. But happy birthday to Warren Buffett. And he's lived a good long life, and I don't wish any demise on anybody, so I, wish him well. 1954, Alexander Lukashenko, president of Belarus, he was born on this day. And that's it for the birthdays. We go back to the year 1282. The Aragonese landed at Trapani in support of the I keep wanting to say Silesians, but it's the Sicilian revolt against Charles I. Angevin king of Naples, Sicily. So when they landed, it began what was known as the Sicilian Vespers, and what that was is that it was a massacre of the French in that area. So I do believe. No, I'm thinking of something else. Never mind. Moving right along, the year is 1800. African American bondsman, which is a nice, it's a nice way of saying a slave. Gabriel was his name. He assembled an army of about 1,000 enslaved people, slaves. He rallied up about 1,000 slaves. They led a revolt. It was outside of Richmond, Virginia. It was the first major slave revolt in U.S. history. Didn't bode so well for Gabriel and his cohorts because they were all executed for their trouble. And that's something that's so we had quite a few slave revolts in the United States until the Civil War. And you would think that as great of a nation that the United States is, that they would have learned from history. All you need to do is look at the story of Spartacus and the slave revolt that he led in Rome, which, after everything was all said and done, I mean, hundreds of thousands are killed because it was like 100,000 slaves, I think, that revolted, and he almost got it. He almost made it out of Roman territory. He almost made it to the Balkans. The problem is that he and other revolt leaders were kind of clashing, and they didn't really have a clear idea. Like, he was almost home free to what would be present day Albania / Macedonia. That's where he was headed. Crixus, on the other hand, wanted to stay and fight. His sole motivation was to just continue fighting the Romans. Oenomaus was kind of along the same lines there. Gannicus was killed. I mean, they were all eventually killed. Although it's rumored that Spartacus survived, but I mean, at the end of that battle, like, so there was about 50 miles. They were within like 50 miles of Rome, I think, and 50 miles, both sides of the road leading to Rome. Everyone was hung up on a cross, crucifixion style, because that was their preferred form of torture back then. And they were lined with all the rebels. But the ramifications of that, after all the dead, I mean, there were a lot of slaves that died for their freedom, but a lot of Roman soldiers' lives were taken in the fighting because, you're fighting gladiators. And gladiators who trained other slaves how to fight, and so it was like very effective. The positive thing that came out of that is that Rome outlawed slavery. They outlawed slavery due to the costliness of slave revolts. Why other nations couldn't figure that out is beyond me. I mean, the British outlawed slavery in the it was either the 1820s or 1830s, and it was probably just as a jab, poking the eye at the United States, being like, hey, we've come up with the times, what's your problem? It's kind of one thing to one up us, I suppose, but they weren't in the wrong when they did so. And so that was the right thing to do, was to end slavery. 1813, we're moving right along. 1813, it's during the Creek War. 250 frontiersmen are killed by the Red Sticks. That was a Native American faction. It was known as the Fort Mims Massacre. In retaliation, the militia that was led by General Andrew Jackson, who would later become president, that Jackson, he destroyed 2 Native American villages as a result of it. He was pretty brutal. He was not a nice guy. He wasn't a very friendly guy when it came to natives. In fact, he was one of those racist presidents that thought that they were subhuman. He was the exact opposite of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson openly embraced the Native American, thought they were, he referred to them as our red brothers, whereas he had, he said that all men were created equal, and that he touted those beliefs and all that. He's even said, not so many words in his own journal, that he had more respect for the red man than he did the black man. That's all you need to know about Thomas Jefferson. I don't really like him. I mean, I'm grateful that he founded our nation and that he helped pave the way, but he had an incredible opportunity to do, of all the things to leave for a legacy. His legacy was, separation of church and state. Well, I mean, that's all well and good, but he even recognized in his diaries that he understood that the institution of slavery did need to come to an end, but he just hoped that it wouldn't come to an end in his lifetime because he didn't want to see it. So, all those early presidents were, not all of them. Washington was actually a really decent man. little fun fact there is that he paid his slaves, and he had set them free upon his death, which Martha was supposed to effect that in his will, but she didn't get around to it, and it wasn't really done until she died that those slaves were set free. So you have some good founding fathers and some that weren't so great. They're hypocrites, really. Moving right along, it's the Civil War. So we just talked about this. It was yesterday or the day before, about the Second Battle of Manassas, or Second Battle of Bull Run. It's when John Pope attacked Stonewall Jackson. Jackson cleaned his clock. Well, it is on this day that battle ends with a very decisive Confederate victory. Like I just said, Stonewall Jackson, he mopped the floor with John Pope and his forces. 1905, Major League Baseball legend Ty Cobb will make his debut with the Detroit Tigers. Ty Cobb was one of those legends, racist as hell, did not like black people. He was very mean on the baseball field. He would go slide into bases with his cleats up just so that he could try to take out the baseman. He was that much of a dick. But he was good at what he did. So, 1918, Britannica.com called him the Soviet leader. He was also one of the original Bolsheviks too, so let's not forget that Vladimir Lenin was a Bolshevik. He led the Bolshevik Revolution. He led the overthrow of the Tsar dynasty. He was the one given the orders, and either his silence was what condemned the Romanov family. They had cabled Moscow and said, shall we kill them? If we don't hear by midnight, we're going to kill them. And they never got a response. So they assumed that was Vladimir Lenin's wishes, was to kill the Romanov family, and so that's what they did. It is on this day that he is shot twice. Lenin was shot twice in an unsuccessful assassination attempt. Don't know that it would have done any good had they assassinated him. I don't know that movement would have failed. I don't know what it would have done for the Bolshevik movement. I think Stalin and Trotsky and all the rest of them, I think they still would have pushed forward. It's hard to say. On this day in 1993, The Late Show with David Letterman debuts on CBS. That's not to be confused with Late Night with David Letterman, which was on NBC, I believe it was. So it's like he had done this late night show for years and years and years, and that contract ended. Then he went to the other company, and he was there for a long, long time. 2003, we see the passing of actor Charles Bronson. He died in Los Angeles at the age of 81. Great, phenomenal actor. He was a great action hero. The Death Wish series was great. He was known for that. He was known for a lot of westerns. He was in The Great Escape, which was a great movie. He was in Dirty Dozen, which was another great movie. Like I said, the Death Wish series movies. He had a lot of really good movies, and it was a sad day when he passed. On this day in 2015, British neurologist and writer Oliver Sacks died at the age of 82 in New York City. In 2021, following the chaotic withdrawal, the last of the United States troops leave Afghanistan after this 7 years after the war had ended in Afghanistan. the problem with that is that it left a huge power vacuum, and all the good that we did over there, same with Iraq, for all the good that we did there, unfortunately, the enemy just, lied in wait, and then the U.S. leaves, the rest of the UN leaves, and then with the idea that the locals were going to take care of business, like in Iraq. We trained the Iraqis, we trained their troops, we trained their law enforcement to keep their country, safe and secure. The guy that took over Iraq after Saddam was removed, al-Maliki, the problem with that guy is he was lazy. From what I could see is that, he just expected the United States to stay there forever to protect their borders, and did absolutely nothing. We had benchmarks for him. President Bush actually wanted to get out of Iraq during his presidency, but he couldn't in good conscience leave them because they weren't the Iraqis weren't meeting their mandates. They weren't meeting their benchmarks so that the U.S. could leave, so that the U.S. could, confidently leave. And the same thing happened in Afghanistan. So, this chaotic withdrawal, this botched withdrawal, Biden left everything behind for Al-Qaeda to just simply take. He left them guns, he left them bullets, he left them, he left them equipment, material, everything. They just left it for the enemy to take, and now they can use that weaponry, that equipment, to continue their stronghold over Afghanistan. And unfortunately, the thing is like the folly of that is, should it ever be determined that they need to go take this terrorist organization out, they're gonna have to go back in there and do it all over again. And the thing is, like, long term, right? These kind of battles, they're long game, meaning you have to stay there for a generation or two or three, right? You have to be committed to being there for the next 50 years, because you're fighting an ideology. And that's the unfortunate thing is that's what happens is when you're fighting ideologies is, you have to win the hearts and minds, and that takes time. It wasn't we go in there, we kick the crap out of Saddam Hussein, and, we do a little bit of nation building, and then we turn the keys over to the kingdom and kumbaya, call it good. It didn't work like that. It wasn't just that we were fighting an evil regime. It was that terrorist organizations were moving in to fill in that power vacuum that was left. That's what and that's an ideology. And unfortunately, you can't kill ideologies, at least not in a timely manner. It takes time to change hearts and minds. And that's the one thing that Obama didn't get, that Biden didn't get, is that, you have to play the long game. And, and it's like, you can say, well, Bill, you're just being a war hawk, you're a war hawk Republican. I'm not. I wasn't really in favor of this war either, because I knew what it was going to cost. I knew that what it was going to take to make sure that the mission was successful. It was that we were going to be there for at least 20 years. We were going to be there for at least, we should have been there for at least a generation or two. Think about it. Why do we still have troops in Germany? Why do we still have troops in Japan? It has been 80 years since World War II, almost. It has been 80 years, and yet we still have troops in those affected areas. Why? Well, it serves twofold, right? It serves the purpose of, should something happen in the region, you have rapid ready deployment, right? You have troops that are able to go deal with the threat in a timely manner, for one. The second is, it's that constant reminder of, you screwed with us, you screwed with the world, and this base here, these troops that are sitting here, this is going to be a bitter reminder for you of how you screwed up so bad that, we are reminding you of our presence here so you don't ever do it again, right? That's what you do, right? Why do we have bases in the Philippines? Well, it's really to keep the Japanese from thinking twice about taking over the Philippines, or anybody else for that matter, right? Why do we have bases in Guam? Same thing. It wasn't so much about keeping them in line as it was a deterrent for others who might think that they might want to like invade. You know, why are we in Saudi Arabia? Why are we in Kuwait? Same thing. It's like any of you, asshats decide that you want to come in here and mess with these people. We're here, and we're gonna, we're not gonna let it stand. That's the thing, is that's what military based presidents don't ever get. They don't understand that. And what I mean by that is presidents who've actually served in the military, they have a better understanding, in my opinion. They have a better understanding of foreign policy, and they have a better understanding of understanding long game. While Abraham Lincoln only served 6 months in a state militia, that 6 months did teach him something about how to make those hard decisions of a military fashion. He didn't take the Civil War lightly. I don't think he really wanted a war. He really truly was about wanting to preserve the house. His famous quote of "a house divided is a house that surely will fall," or something along those lines. At any rate, the featured event is it's 1983, the historic space flight by United States astronaut Guion S. Bluford Jr. I'm probably butchering his name. I apologize. Bluford became the first African American to travel into space. He served as a mission specialist aboard the Challenger. He would later go on 3 other missions, and had a very, very positive career within NASA. So, ended that on a high note there. So I got to get going. I am running late, and so this has been This Day in History for August 30th. We'll do it again tomorrow for August 31st. And have a blessed weekend. Take care. It's Labor Day weekend, so whatever you're doing, just be safe. And, don't drink and drive. Just be safe. Use your head. All right. If you're going to drink, have an exit strategy. Have a backup plan. Call that designated driver. Call that cab. Whatever. I mean, you know what? A cab ride or calling a friend, it's a drop in a bucket, and it's cheap compared to a minimum of 10 grand that you're going to drop if you get popped for a Dewey. Minimum 10 grand. And there's just so much rigmarole that you go through, and it's just not worth it. When I was in college, one of my instructors, who was my dad's best friend, my stepdad's best friend, he said it best, and it truly was, the most sage piece of advice that I ever got, other than know your audience. That's something else, but he said that drunk driving is like the one crime that is the most easily preventable, because all it really requires is a little forethought. And it's so true, right? It's like, it is so easily preventable, and it's not necessary. That's why he had zero tolerance for drunk drivers. He had zero sympathy for when they got caught, or when he took them to jail, because a little bit of forethought, and this coming from a guy, me, who is an alcoholic of 24 years of sobriety. And I got to tell you, just because I never got caught doesn't mean that I wasn't out there drinking and driving myself. I did it a lot. I did, many, many times did I partake in drinking and driving. And I thank God above that I never hurt anybody. And that's the thing, like, in my selfishness, I could have killed somebody. Could have hurt myself. And that's on me, right? That I deal with the consequences. But hurting someone else by getting into a car accident or whatever, I couldn't live with myself with that. So I thank God that he spared me that, and I thank God that I didn't have to learn the hard way by going to jail and all that. So, because I'm fragile, I don't think I could handle jail. But at any rate, I gotta go. So have a blessed weekend. Be safe for this Labor Day weekend, and enjoy your day off. Have a great day. Take care, and we'll see you tomorrow for this day in history for August 31st. All right? Be blessed. Bye.